As a child, I dreamed of becoming a ballerina. I trained as a ballet dancer from childhood. I was taught to give complete obedience to the artistic director, absolute loyalty to the dance company, and to put ballet before everything else in my life. I finally realized there's no way to get ahead in this world without compromise. It just can't be done. Such a life is empty and unsatisfying. Problem is, once you get into that, because you get lulled in by that glamour and glitz, now down the road, when you finally see the trap and what you got into, it's very hard to get out. And I always tell young people, it doesn't matter how good everything seems, it doesn't matter how great, there's always a string attached, always. And then one day, you're gonna wake up and it's a rope. And you can't cut a rope that easily, meaning you can't get out of the situation once Satan has you trapped in it. And it happens without you even realizing it. Ballet is discipline. And I had to figure out a way to take that skill and transfer it into my everyday life. Took some time, but I finally figured it out because it's not a waste, it's good. But what I had to learn was to get out of my comfort zone. One thing led to another, and I became a commuter Bethelite for the legal department. I'd say about 11 years after I had left Bethel, I was working, all of a sudden, I got sick again. Same thing, complete rapid loss of weight, all the weakness came back. I was eventually diagnosed as having celiac disease. So once I changed my diet, I just started getting better and better. I stayed with the law firm until 2014, and then my husband and I retired and moved to another part of the country. And now currently, I'm a remote Bethel consultant. Slave for the world, you really are a slave. If you slave for Jehovah, in my opinion, you're not slaving at all. You couldn't have a better partnership than you and Jehovah, and that's how I view it. And you're never going to experience Jehovah to the full unless you put yourself out there for him to use. I've had a wonderful life of extraordinary spiritual privileges. There's no career in the world that is ever going to come close to that.
We're watching the story of Elizabeth Balnave, at least I assume that's how you pronounce her name, which is included in the JW Broadcasting episode for November 2021. This is part of a series, Where Are They Now?, where they follow up on people who they've had their stories featured in the magazines. Elizabeth seems like a nice lady. I just wish she'd follow her own advice.
I always tell young people, it doesn't matter how good everything seems, it doesn't matter how great, there's always a string attached, always. And then one day, you're gonna wake up and it's a rope.
It doesn't matter how good everything seems, there's always a string attached. The makers of this JW Broadcasting episode just seem to be completely incapable of detecting irony. I mean, isn't that summing up brilliantly what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness? It seems good. It seems great. It seems like you have all of the answers, the absolute truth, but there's always a string attached. And the string actually ends up being a rope. By the way, I love the fact that they've shown us stock footage of a rope. Yeah, we wouldn't know what a rope is if you hadn't shown us that stock footage. But yeah, so much irony there. To be completely honest, she kind of lost me when she mentioned that she's helping the legal department.
One thing led to another, and I became a commuter Bethelite for the legal department. And now currently, I'm a remote Bethel consultant.
So I'm assuming she's being used as a consultant for the legal department. Well, how is that something to be proud of? She is supporting an organization, and specifically the part of the organization that's doing this. She is supporting an organization that is endangering children. The legal department of Jehovah's Witnesses is the attack dog, is the Rottweiler that deals with the fallout from the mishandling of child sexual abuse. There's no other way to put it. So it's the legal department that goes in and exacerbates the trauma for victims by making things so much harder for them, by making it harder for them to get justice, for them to get some kind of resolution, some kind of closure on their abuse. The legal department is the wall that stands between survivors of abuse from among Jehovah's Witnesses and justice. And here we have Elizabeth Balnave, apparently proud of herself for being a brick in that wall. Well, good for you, Elizabeth. I hope that gives you some kind of satisfaction, but you're not impressing me. You're certainly not impressing survivors of abuse. You're not just roped up in an abusive cult. You are making yourself part of that cult's apparatus. And then she talks about how proud she is to be a slave.
Slave for the world, you really are a slave. If you slave for Jehovah, in my opinion, you're not slaving at all.
Well, thank you for your opinion, Elizabeth Balnave, consultant to the Watchtower Legal Department. I'm happy to tell you where you can put your opinion, quite frankly, because there's nothing to be proud of in being a slave, especially a slave to an abusive cult. And it's one thing to be exploited. It's one thing for this organization to treat you like a slave, so that you have to sacrifice so much. You have to sacrifice so much of your life, so many years and decades of free labor, of time and energy, to perpetuating something that's not true. But to go one step further and promote this for young people, as you're doing, is frankly reprehensible. And if you do ever manage to free yourself from the ropes of this organization, then I'm sorry to say, given your involvement in the legal department, given your involvement in the industrial scale cover-up of child abuse, you'll have some explaining to do.